So I'm going to draw my life in this video, just using this whiteboard. Hopefully people who see this can get to know me and understand the things that make me who I am today. So I'll start at the beginning. I was born on July 18th, 1996 in a hospital. And I am the eldest of my family. I'm the firstborn to both my parents. So they were like, oh, it's our first time having a baby. And they probably made all their mistakes on me. Little old baby me. And they also shaved my head like 3 times. Because they were just like, oh, this baby was born with so much hair. Okay, I think I'm going off on a tangent. Anyway, 4 years later, my little sister was born, and she was born premature. She was born 3 months early, so she was only 2 pounds, and the doctor predicted that she would die very soon, but it was a miracle that she didn't, and she survived through, up until now. She's so healthy. She's healthier than me, and I love her very much. So then I went off to elementary school, blah, 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 and when I was 7, we moved from one city to another city, and it was really close. They were like right next to each other, but for someone in grade 2, that is changing their whole environment, their whole elementary school life, and I was so miserable at my new school, and I had like no friends at first, and I just played with the ants and fed them my snacks every day. But then I got a lot of friends, and I actually became kind of popular in elementary school. I know, I was just really cool, and people were always like copying me, and I was like setting trends. Okay, but it sounds really stupid now. And then I went to middle school, and when I was in grade 7, my parents got into an argument because I said I needed the computer to do my homework, but my dad was playing a chess game on the computer. And we only had one computer. Like, I grew up in a low-income household. My dad and my mom got into a physical altercation, which is just a fancy way of saying, I guess, that my mom was strangled by my dad and choked by him. And the next day, my mom told the police. So they had a whole court thingy. But my dad decided to skip out on court and run away to China because my dad is from Shanghai. And so he went back there. My mom had a restraining order against him because my dad had threatened to kill her. And my sister and I and my mom never saw him for those 3 years after, saw him physically or really communicated with him all that much. And it was really traumatizing for me and my sister because we witnessed everything that happened on that day during that incident. And my dad was he couldn't come back to Canada. If he did, even if he even flew to Alaska, he would be arrested at the airport, and that would go for any of the airports in Canada as well. So we didn't see him, and then I just kind of lived my middle school life. I tried to get over it. My mom is a really, really strong Christian, and so am I and my sister. So after that incident happened in grade 7, we switched churches, and I decided to go to a certain church, which I still go to right now. I just kind of lived my life and tried to be normal. I mean, it wasn't too much of a difference that my dad was gone, because even before the incident in grade 7, he only lived with us for maybe a year was the longest, and he would always go back to Asia to work. So I didn't really have that close of relationship with him in the beginning, but it still hurt me a lot that he became completely absent. Okay, so in grade 7, that was also the first time I started getting into acting. And in grade 8, I took my first acting class, and I think one of the motivations was that I thought that now that my mom was a single mom, we were already poor to begin with. When we were little, we would just sleep on the same bed, all 3 of us, my mom and my sister and I. And we were pretty poor, and after my dad left, I thought that I had to be a breadwinner. So that was how I kind of got into acting, because I thought, you know, the only thing I can do right now is babysit or, you know, be like those kids on TV. So I got into doing some background work and acting classes. It hasn't really worked out where it's given me money. I haven't earned money from it. I've mostly just spent a lot of money for my acting career, but I didn't know that when I started getting into it. And I really fell in love with it because when I was little, I would always write books, and I still write books a lot. In grade 7, I actually started my first series of young adult novels. And there's actually, I think, 5 or 6 novel installments in the series now. They're not published, but I'm really proud of them, even though the ones that I wrote in grade 7 are probably a little bit immature. And actually, when I was in grade 8, I did some more writing, and I actually became a really popular writer anonymously on, like, there used to be this app on Facebook that people would write their stories on, and it was a really, really, really popular app. And I wrote, like, anonymously, like, no one knew who I was. But my story, which I updated every day for my fans on that app, my story became so popular on there. It was, like, I think the 3rd most popular. It had, like, 3,000 favorites. You know, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool for a 13-year-old. Anyhow, I started getting into acting in grade 8. I got my first agent for acting when I was in grade 8. Okay, so in grade 9 and 10, I was in high school, and I started getting more and more heavily involved with acting. Like, I would go to so many acting classes, and they would always be 2 hours transit. So it was hard work for 14-year-old, 15-year-old me. It was kind of stressful, and because we didn't really have the money to pay for the acting classes, I would also volunteer at this cafe that one of my acting instructors run. So all through this time, I had been doing lots of films, like student films or commercials or other things. My mom also had health problems, I think when I was in grade 9. I'm not sure exactly when, but probably grade 9, she had her kidney taken out in a surgery. So in grade 11, I think I was on my way home from an acting thing. And this whole week, this week in particular that I'm talking about, I was really drained and exhausted and not getting enough sleep because my whole life I've kind of struggled with insomnia. I was just having a bit of panic and just having a lot of racing thoughts, and I just didn't feel right for a long time. I felt like there was stress from having seen my dad, perhaps, because I guess the first time I saw my dad after he left when I was 12 was when I was 15, so that would have been grade 10. And so this one particular week when I was in grade 11, I was on my way home, and I, for some reason, couldn't get on the correct SkyTrain, and I was just making myself lost, going to different cities that aren't where I'm trying to go. So I was really worried about myself, and I just thought that my brain was, you know, had a disease in it, and I just felt very dizzy. And for that past week, I had no sleep and a lot of pressure, and I had a lot of fear. I just felt like my life was in danger. So I was at a SkyTrain station, and I'd already seen a doctor about this before, and he had just said it was stress, which right now, in retrospect, I think it was actually just stress. But anyway, I was feeling faint, so the security took me to an ambulance, and they took me to a hospital. I was diagnosed with bipolar. For the time I was in the hospital, like, the total is 1 month, but it was actually 2 weeks for the first stay, and then 1 week out, and then 2 weeks again for the second stay. After I stabilized my sleeping patterns, and I also became a pescatarian when I started living in the hospital. After I seemed to be getting better, I was able to be discharged, and I was just living in, like, the psych ward for the young adults and the youth and the teenagers. Prior to getting into the hospital, I was working on an independent film, which was co-directed by Rachel Talalay, who has directed a few episodes of Haven, and Haven is my favorite show, like one of my favorite shows. It only just ended, which I'm super sad about. So after I got out, everything kind of went back to normal, except I had drifted apart from my friends mainly because of how I was more interested in acting, and I wasn't really interested in any of the things that I thought that they were interested in, and I just kind of isolated myself a lot when I was in high school, so I kind of didn't really have that close friend circle that I used to have in middle school, which is depressing. For the bipolar disorder, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, and they can diagnose you with bipolar just based on one manic episode, one episode of mania. And so that's what I had. I didn't have like any documented periods of depression. After all that, I just kind of tried to tone down my work ethic and to be more relaxed and calm and take care of my body more and do less work with volunteering and acting. Another trigger I think that made me go to the hospital and be diagnosed with bipolar was because the agent I had at the time dropped me, and I was so, I'm very, very focused on acting, and when things like that happen, it just feels like the end of the world. Anyway, I just continued high school and it was normal. I had to retake math in 2013, which was also, it was after I got out of the hospital and was stable for a long time. We got our cat, Tapioca, who I love. So I graduated high school in 2014 with an award in community service, but I didn't really have that many friends. And then I got into university. So I went to that, and now I'm in my second year of university, and I plan on double majoring in creative writing and film studies if I can get into those programs because they're pretty selective. I'm also taking a gender studies class next term, which I'm so excited about. If you didn't know, I am a total feminist. I love feminism. I'm really proud to be a feminist. Oh yeah, actually, I wanted to mention that one of my favorite YouTubers is Marina Shut Up. She does a feminist YouTube channel. I've just been, throughout university and high school, I've just been doing lots of acting things outside of school, and that's still what I do. I just audition and work on student films or independent stuff. Recently, in this year, 2015, I was able to go off of the medication I was on for bipolar disorder, so I like to think of myself as a cured person. And my opinion about mental illness and everything is that it's very easy to get a diagnosis, in my opinion, and I don't think, just from taking psychology course and at university and just from other things, my own experience, and I think pharmacy and psychiatry, they sometimes don't really know everything about mental illness. Still a big question mark. That's not to say you shouldn't trust your doctor, but I believe every person has the potential to have a manic episode like mine, or to suffer depression, or just exhibit, these symptoms of maybe schizophrenia, bipolar, panic disorder, and things like that just from events that happen in your life. And I don't think that all people would deal with it by going to the hospital and requesting a diagnosis, and that might be why there's not that many people with mental illness. But I do think that it happens. It can happen for everybody, and maybe has happened or will happen to everyone. I think it's a universal experience, not something that people should be ashamed about. I'm sorry my voice sounds so horrible and raspy. I don't know why this is. It must be because I've just been talking to myself for a long time. Another thing that has happened in 2015 is in August, me and my sister went to go visit my dad, and there's just been a lot of, drama in my life from him. For example, when my grandma on my dad's side passed away, he didn't tell me about it until 2 years after. It's a long story, but since we don't really have access to them because my grandparents in China don't have internet and they are hard of hearing and very, it's just really hard to see them or communicate with them unless we go there physically. So when I was in the hospital, my grandma actually died. And my dad didn't tell me about it because he figured I was under a lot of stress, but he actually didn't tell me or my sister or my mom until 2 years after the fact, which made me very sad. Another thing that happened was that my dad got remarried, and he now has a son, which is my little half-brother, and he turned 2 this Christmas, because his birthday is on Christmas. And we went to go visit him and my dad and my stepmom in August because they moved to Canada, a different province, but still Canada, and they moved to Canada in February of 2015. And I got to meet my little brother, and I taught him to say my name, kind of. He can only say Ju. I'm working on my relationship with my dad. Well, this is a lot to be telling you guys. Yeah, like when we saw him in August this year, that was the first time in 3 years again that I had seen him. So we saw him when I was 15, when we visited him in Shanghai, and I saw him again when I was 16 because he came to see me while I was in the hospital. And then this year, that would be when I was 19. So I don't really see him in person that much, but I try to communicate with him and he like kind of Skypes me. Yar. I'm just kind of jumping all over the place. I guess that's my life. I guess that's up to now. I guess we're all caught up and now you know. Happy New Year! Even though I'm recording this prior to the new year. That's Julie signing out. Bye!